We on this channel think we're not alone when we say that the first season of Kaiju No. 8's anime adaptation has been a rousing success. The only problem is, it's left us hankering for more of Kafka Hibino and the rest of the series' colorful bunch of characters. While Crunchyroll has already dropped news that Season 2 is currently in production, we're still probably going to wait for a while for the next part of Kaiju No. 8's anime to be released. But we're happy to tell you that you won't have to wait a year or two to find out about what happens next in Naoya Matsumoto's monster hit series, because we're here to tell you all about what happens in Kaiju No. 8's epic story following the conclusion of its anime's first season. So guys, prepare for full spoilers ahead as we take you through the full story of Kaiju No. 8's weapon arc. Fair warning, this is going to be a spoiler-filled banger ahead of us. Now, let's stomp right through today's video. The weapon arc explained. The storyline that follows the conclusion of Kaiju No. 8 anime's first season, named the Weapon Arc, picks up right in the aftermath of its final episode, when the rest of the Self-Defense Force's 3rd Division rookies receive news of Kafka Hibino's trial, where his execution has been indefinitely deferred. At this particular moment, Ace Kaiju Slayer rookie Kikoru Shinomiya receives the same message from the 3rd Division's captain, Mina Ashiro, while inside the JAKDF's 1st Division offices. Now, we all know by now that Kikoru's low-key crushing on Kafka, so hearing news of his continued survival, and the fact that he gets to serve with Japan's Kaiju Defense Force, makes the young Shinomiya girl elated, but only for a second. Because as soon as she realizes what this bit of good news implies, Kikoru's whole expression becomes dour, as she reminds herself that she's yet to reach her so-called final form, her true potential. That is to say, Kikoru knows that she still has a long way to go to become a proper Kaiju Slayer. And this has become her top priority now more than ever, considering the possibility that it's now up to her to put down Kafka if he ever loses control of his Kaiju form. Kikoru suddenly rises from her seat and stands at attention when the vice captain of the 1st Division, Eiji Hasegawa, enters the room to tell her that he'll be taking Kikoru to meet with her new captain. Now, just a bit of a refresher, guys. Remember that after the Kaiju attack on the 3rd Division's Tachikawa HQ and Kafka getting outed as a monster, his JAKDF batchmates, Kikoru included, were subsequently assigned to different divisions within the organization. In Kikoru's case, she's been assigned to serve under the 1st Division, which is basically the cream of the crop of the JAKDF. In fact, Kikoru is well aware of the 1st Division's reputation not just in Japan, but all throughout the world. It's hands down the strongest anti-kaiju unit in existence. Kikoru's determined to hone her skills here, knowing that the 1st Division's captain, someone even she refers to as Japan's strongest Kaiju Slayer who surpasses even the likes of Mina Ashiro, would be a bottomless well of information and skills that she can learn from. Well, that is until she and Vice Captain Eiji enter this legendary officer's quarters, the hero known as 1st Division Captain Gen Narumi, only to find out that he's an absolute gremlin. That is to say, he's kind of a slob who's equal parts otaku and hikikomori when outside the JAKDF uniform. Narumi's office literally looks like a dump littered with garbage bags, empty soda cans and drink bottles, and, being an otaku himself, video game consoles and action figures. In fact, the 1st Division captain doesn't even notice he has visitors while he obsessively taps away at his controller to reach platinum rank in some video game he's playing. Seeing this, Eiji immediately realizes what picture Gen paints for the entire 1st Division at this moment, so he shuts the doors to his office, tells Kikoru to wait for a moment, and the vice captain busts in there to literally kick Narumi's video game-obsessed butt. But hey, at least the captain made it just in time to reach that much-coveted platinum rank in his game before his right-hand man launched him right into his console with that swift kick, which promptly destroyed it. Eiji then chastises Narumi for not cleaning up his office in spite of the reminder he gave him earlier. And at this point, we get to find out that not only is the 1st Division captain a hardcore geek, but he has issues with authority too, as he tells his vice captain that he deliberately ignored Eiji's request. And just like earlier, he gets another swift kick from the older gentleman, this time sending him flying towards his prized Gundam model kit and wrecking the collectible. At this point, Narumi loses his patience and tells Eiji something along the lines of "my office, my rules," but the vice captain clarifies that no, the office doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the Defense Force, but Narumi is hearing none of it. In fact, he continues to berate Eiji and tell him that if he wants to clean his office, the vice captain should do it himself. Well, Eiji takes him up on that offer as he grabs the young captain by the collar, suspends him in the air, and calls for the rest of 1st Division's men to clean up everything in the office, and we mean everything, to Narumi's dismay. The vice captain then beckons Kikoru to come inside the room so that she can get her proper introduction to the 1st Division, and she realizes at this point that Narumi is absolutely not the kind of captain she had pictured in his mind. Still, the JAKDF super rookie maintains her composure and salutes her new captain, to which Narumi replies by telling her that there's no need for all this ceremony in his neck of the woods. According to him, there's only one thing he expects from everyone in the 1st Division. Kikoru asks her new captain what that is, but they suddenly receive a distress call from HQ. So, instead of answering the question, Narumi tells his new subordinate to tag along and she'll find out soon enough about it. Shortly after, the 1st Division goes to Kawasaki Ward to take care of an approaching Hanju-level threat coming from the sea. Vice Captain Iji takes point and leads a battery charge against the incoming beast. Kikoru sees this and she immediately notices that the 1st Division has something else. They're using the bombardment to direct the Hanju's path, something that only the most skilled JA-KDF officers can do. At this point, Kikoru realizes that this new division of hers is truly a cut above the rest when she surmises that each and every one of the soldiers here have an unleashed combat power of at least 40%, a level that easily surpasses platoon leaders from other divisions. We find out that Narumi has taken the Shinomiya girl with him, as the 1st Division captain invites Kikoru to enter the fray after the rest of his men have successfully led the Hanju to its designated neutralization point. And it's here that we find out Narumi's answer to her question earlier. As an officer of the 1st Division, he doesn't demand manners, appearance, diligence, and grace from Kikoru. At this moment, Narumi brushes his hair back to reveal his numbers weapon augmented pupils before leaping off from their Chinhook helicopter and stabbing the Hanju right through its core. The monster explodes in a huge cloud of viscera, and in the aftermath, we see Narumi just chilling on top of his sword, as he tells Kikoru that he wants only one thing from her and every member of the JA-KDF's 1st Division, to show overwhelming skill. Kikoru sees Narumi absolutely one-shotting the Hanju, and she ultimately gets over the fact that he's a freaky geek outside the uniform, and she fully realizes that the 1st Division is the perfect place for her to improve her skills. Later, we discover that Narumi has assigned Kikoru to be his personal attendant, as she realizes that she may have spoken too soon about fully committing to the 1st Division when Narumi reverts to his childish, freaky self after the mission. This time, he's enraged to find out that 3rd Division Captain Mina Ashiro is on the headlines of today's paper, whereas he is relegated to a subheading on the front page. He then starts ranting about it to Kikoru, and his mood just worsens when he checks his socials to find out that he's getting trolled by random strangers online. At this point, Kikoru just keeps a stiff upper lip as she hears her captain's pager ringing. She asks Narumi if he's going to answer it, to which he says that it's just about some boring meeting with director Isao Shinomiya, Kikoru's dad, and Iji, so no, he's not going to waste his time attending that snooze fest. Well, too bad, because the vice captain hears this and kicks his butt again to force him to go. Narumi protests, but he and Kikoru suddenly become attentive when Iji tells him that this meeting is going to be about Kaiju No. 8. Somewhere else, we find Kafka doing push-ups inside his cell within the JA-KDF's main headquarters. He reveals that it's been 5 days since Director Isao basically pardoned him and told him to show the organization his usefulness, but he hasn't been assigned to a single mission. So, Kafka is understandably getting antsy. He's determined to do anything to prove his worth not just to the JA-KDF, but specifically to Rino, Hoshina, Mina, and the rest of his batchmates from the 3rd Division, the individuals that he's grown closest to. Suddenly, his cell doors swing open and a squad of masked JA-KDF officers tell him that he's been summoned to the director's office. There, Kafka is ill at ease when he notices that Gen Narumi is in the same room. But we immediately get our answer when Isao Shinomiya tells Kafka that, just like his daughter Kikoru, he's going to be assigned to the 1st Division in order to create the most powerful anti-kaiju unit in the history of the country by combining its ace officers with Kaiju No. 8. Kafka gladly accepts his new position, but Narumi cuts off the meeting and attempts to walk out, all the while telling Isao that he doesn't need Kafka in his division and will do fine with just him around. However, the director replies by basically telling his protege that there's nothing he can do about it. Isao explains that the recent emergence of Daikaiju level threats like No. 9 and No. 10 necessitates this decision. The kaiju are evolving and the JA-KDF has to evolve with them in order to combat these threats. He also chastises Narumi for being arrogant and complacent, telling the young captain that resting on your laurels and thinking that you have everything under control will inevitably lead to their undoing. Still, Narumi's one stubborn dude, and in all seriousness, he tells Kafka in his face that Kaiju No. 8 would serve him better if they scuttle it for parts and turn Kafka into another numbers weapon. Man, Narumi gets so dark at this moment that it even freaks out Kikoru and Isao. But the 1st Division captain ultimately relents when Kafka pleads his case and tells Narumi that he can't die just yet, because he needs to accomplish something, referring to Kafka's childhood promise to stand beside Mina. And in the end, Narumi tells Kafka the same thing he told Kikoru. He doesn't care for Kafka's emotions, promise, or his situation. All he wants is overwhelming skills and results. And just to drive the point home that the rookie isn't welcome in the 1st Division, Narumi tells Kafka one more thing. If he ever loses control of Kaiju No. 8 again, the captain's not going to hesitate to kill Kafka and turn him into a numbers weapon. Still, Kafka takes what he can get and thanks the 1st Division captain for accepting him into the fold. Sometime later, a tremor rocks the middle of Shinagawa. The citizens think it's just another earthquake that's nothing to worry about. That is, until it gets stronger and stronger and they discover that a giant gaping hole has suddenly appeared in the middle of the city. Not long after that, a horde of ant-like yoju comes bursting out of the hole and starts wreaking havoc throughout the city. While all this is happening, Kikoru has just finished attending her daily training with the rest of 1st Division's officers, so she hurries towards Narumi's office for her personal training session with the captain. When she gets there, she's surprised to find Narumi kowtowing right before her, as the otaku begs Kikoru to lend him some money after he blew his paycheck on boxes upon boxes of Yamazon orders. Their conversation is cut short, however, when they receive another distress call. Iji walks into the room to tell them to get prepped for a neutralization mission in Shinagawa. Not long after that, Narumi and the rest of 1st Division put their game faces on and prepare for battle. Meanwhile, Shinagawa's residents desperately run for cover as the yoju continue to terrorize their city. A young girl and her older brother find cover on the side of a parked car. The girl tells her big bro that she's terrified, but the boy reassures her that Narumi will cook these giant ants soon enough. Suddenly, one of the ant yoju spots the two kids and attacks them. The two children are frozen in terror, but the boy doesn't lose hope and tells himself that Narumi will save them. And, as if on cue, the captain of JAKDF's 1st Division drops right on top of the yoju and kills it with a single blow from his blade. The boy gets hyped, and in true Narumi fashion, he tells the kids to go home, grab their mom's phone, and post "Narumi is cool" 10 times on their social media pages. The rest of Narumi's men help evacuate the kids, as he takes point and tells his subordinates that keeping civilians safe is their top priority. He then directly gives Kafka and Kikoru a direct order and tasks the two rookies to eliminate all kaiju approaching their designated neutralization zones, reminding them to show him results. Hearing this, Kafka becomes all the more determined to meet Narumi's expectations and not waste the chance that Director Isao gave him. At this point, 1st Division's command center informs Kafka and Kikoru that the yoju have been successfully rerouted to the designated neutralization point. The JAKDF's top rookie then springs into action and starts lopping off the giant ants with her trademark axe. Narumi tries to tell his platoon leader, Shinonome, to assist Kikoru as needed, but they immediately find out that Shinomiya is more than capable of dispatching the yoju all by herself. Still, while Kikoru is busy chopping up the hordes of insectoid kaiju in the neutralization zone, she can't help but let her insecurities get the better of her. First, she compares herself to Vice Captain Hoshina, telling herself she's not as fast as him. Then, Kikoru starts comparing herself to Captain Oshiro, and she tells herself her hits still lack the power to rival the 3rd Division captain's power. Platoon leader Shinonome tries to provide backup, but she fails to notice one of the yoju creeping up behind her. But no worries, because Kikoru's right there to take it down. In fact, Kikoru's totally prodigious talent for killing monsters even impresses Vice Captain Iji, who tells his captain that he noticed that Shinomiya is noticeably stronger compared to Narumi back when he was a rookie in the JAKDF. Narumi objects, but he brushes it off and goes back to work as he notices how strange it is that ant-type kaiju like this are appearing above ground and attacking in droves. Iji hears this and surmises that what's happening now is strangely similar to what happened back at the Tachikawa base, where those wyvern-type kaiju, who are usually solitary creatures, went against their baseline instincts and banded together to wreck the 3rd Division's headquarters. Narumi ultimately concludes that something is leading these giant ants behind the scenes. Meanwhile, it's Kafka's turn to kill some kaiju, as they receive a report from the command center that some of the yoju have arrived at the neutralization zone he's assigned to. Kafka prepares himself, and the rest of JAKDF's eyes are on him, as Isao and the other heads of the organization intently watch what he's going to do. Back at Kafka's location, one of the yoju appears in front of him and he lunges at the creature. Kafka activates partial transformation on his fist and strikes the giant ant's thorax. But it's not remotely enough to even put a dent on the huge insect. The yoju retaliates and Kafka barely manages to evade its fangs. Back at the command center, Isao and the rest of the JAKDF heads wonder why Kafka isn't transforming. On the ground, Kafka reveals that he deliberately avoided going for a full kaiju transformation since he fears he might lose control of the monster inside him again. While this is happening, Kafka barely notices it when the yoju spits acid his way, and again he barely manages to evade a direct hit. But at this point, he realizes the gravity of the situation and reminds himself that he has to survive if he wants to one day stand beside Mina. So Kafka tries to fully transform into Kaiju No. 8, but he still can't do it. His kaiju form immediately turns to dust the moment it appears, to Kafka and everyone else's surprise, and this time he's too late to dodge the yoju's claw about to take a swing at him. Kafka's hit and gets driven right through a wall, but he survives. At this point, he's just as confused as the rest of the JAKDF as to why he can't transform. To make matters worse, the guys in the chair back in HQ have just received a reading that there's a Daikaiju level threat somewhere in Shinagawa. Vice Captain Iji asks HQ where exactly the Daikaiju is projected to appear, and the hits just keep on coming, because the analysts at the command center have just checked their data and determined that the Daikaiju is right under Kafka. And at that moment, Narumi realizes that whoever's leading the giant ants actually has Kaiju number 8 as their main target, as the ground beneath Kafka crumbles to reveal that Kaiju number 9 is back, and this time it has fused itself with one of the ant Yoju. Kaiju number 9 twists and writhes as it reveals itself in front of Kafka, who remains frozen in shock at the Daikaiju's arrival. And once number 9 fully manifests itself, the creature expresses its bewilderment at the fact that it just sensed Kaiju number 8's presence earlier, only to see Kafka in front of it. Well, the grotesque ant-riding Daikaiju puts 2 and 2 together shortly after that, as it asks Kafka if he's really Kaiju number 8. However, before the JA-KDF cadet can answer, Kaiju number 9 hits him with one of its supersonic finger bullets, which blows a gaping hole right in Kafka's left shoulder. Kaiju number 9 tells him that it's going to find out soon enough if he really is the monster it's looking for, and all Kafka can do is scream as he tries to stop its bleeding. All the while, the rest of the 1st Division scampers to get a status report on Kafka, and the analysts at the command center's operations room give everyone the bad news. Kafka still can't transform into Kaiju number 8. Vice Captain Ichi panics and asks his comrades what their next move should be, considering that it's game over if Kaiju number 9 manages to abduct Kafka. So of course, Narumi steps in and picks up the slack. He's well aware that he's pretty much one of a handful of soldiers in the JA-KDF who stands a chance against a Daikaiju level threat like number 9, so he heads straight to it in Kafka's location. But on his way there, Narumi is stopped by another ant Yoju. To make matters worse, this particular insectoid monster also has its very own Kaiju number 9 infused with its head. Everyone in the 1st Division is shocked to discover that there are now 2 Daikaiju level threats in the vicinity, and Narumi asks himself how it's even possible that number 9 could be in 2 places at once. Platoon leader Shinonome knows that Narumi can't reach Kafka in time if he faces off against the 2nd Kaiju number 9, so she and her squad of troops mobilize to provide suppressing fire for their captain. And this is when things take another turn for the worse, as Shinonome witnesses all the ant Yoju they've defeated earlier simultaneously coming back to life. The hits don't end there either, because each of the 1st Division squads report that the same thing is happening in their respective neutralization zones. The JA-KDF's officers realize that this is exactly like what happened at the 3rd Division's Tachikawa base, but little did they know that it's much, much worse. Because as soon as the folks at the command center check their sensors, they immediately realize that this particular attack covers a much wider area compared to the Kaiju assault on Tachikawa. Narumi and Ichi take note of everything that's happening and correctly attribute it to Kaiju number 9's sudden re-emergence. Back at Kafka, the Daikaiju level threat makes its intentions known, as it tells him that it plans on killing Kafka and stealing Kaiju number 8 from him. And number 9 isn't like some old school villain either. It just doesn't sit idly by while it explains its plans. It straight up starts spraying Kafka with its supersonic finger bullets, and one of them nearly takes Kafka's shin clean off. The JA-KDF cadet desperately tries to avoid Kaiju number 9's continuous barrage, as he does his best to activate his Kaiju number 8 form, but he fails yet again. At this point, Kafka has found himself cornered, and number 9 prepares to give him the killing blow. That is until Kikoru arrives behind Kaiju number 9 and slices it in half. It takes a few moments, but number 9 ultimately heals and reconstructs itself after taking that otherwise fatal blow from Kikoru. It asks her who she is, and we see Kikoru utter one of the most badass lines in the series so far, as she tells Kaiju number 9 that it's fine if it doesn't remember her, she'll be killing this monster today anyway. Back at HQ, Director Isao watches as his daughter and Kafka face off against Kaiju number 9. His right-hand man, Natami, tells him that he knows Isao wants to go out there and help, but he strongly advises the director not to do it. Even if Isao's intentions are good, there's no way his body can handle it. As his confidant tells him, Number's weapons are dangerous as hell. It chips away at your vitality, so each use shortens your lifespan. If Isao were to go out there, he'd definitely die from overexertion. Realizing this, the JA-KDF director entrusts the mission to Kikoru, Kafka, and the rest of 1st Division. To him, this will be the ultimate test to see if the future of the JA-KDF has what it takes to carry the torch and defend Japan from its kaiju-related threats. Back at Kafka and Kikoru, the young girl asks him if he can transform into number 8, but Kafka tells her the truth. His powers are still out of whack. Kikoru maintains her composure and hazards a guess that maybe Kaiju number 9 is preventing Kafka from unleashing the monster inside him. But there's not much time to deliberate, as number 9 is already charging for another barrage using the huge balls of explosive flesh attached to its body. Kafka and Kikoru jump away just as the projectiles hit. She then tells him that she's going to try and subdue Kaiju number 9 to give Kafka enough time to focus and transform into his kaiju form. With everything set, Kikoru and her comrades spring their plan. They split up in opposite directions while they charge at the creature to divert its attention from either one of them, but the monster has another trick up its grotesque sleeve, as it literally splits itself in two so it can attack the JAKDF rookies simultaneously. Kafka is hit with another barrage of supersonic bullets, while Kikoru uses her axe to parry the projectiles, but Kaiju number 9 is just too quick. When Kikoru recovers, she fails to notice that their enemy has already outflanked her, and number 9 hits her with a supersonic bullet to the midsection. Kaiju number 9 thinks she's down until it sees a furious Kikoru lunging at it. She swipes number 9 with her gigantic weapon, which the creature barely evades. Meanwhile, Kikoru has become resolute. She's going to make sure that she'll be able to protect her comrades, especially Kafka, this time. Kikoru then puts pressure on Kaiju number 9, hacking away with her axe as the Daikaiju level threat is forced to go on the defensive. And unsurprisingly, the people at HQ can't help but be impressed with what the prodigious JAKDF rookie is displaying. In fact, Isao's right-hand man compares Kikoru to her late mother, the legendary JAKDF officer Hikari Shinomiya. We also get to see a much younger Kikoru in a flashback, as she watches her mom on TV, in awe that Hikari had just defeated another kaiju effortlessly. And it's at this point where we also get more information about her mom. For one, Hikari was the captain of JAKDF's 2nd Division. For another, she wielded an axe just like Kikoru. But most notable of these revelations is the fact that, like most high-ranking JAKDF officers, Hikari also donned her own Numbers weapon suit. In this case, she was the last person to use Numbers Weapon 4, which is this awesome armor that makes her look like a Valkyrie. We find out that little Kikoru is watching this at school, and even her classmates think that her mom is the coolest person in the world. Later that night, Kikoru welcomes her mom home and tells her that she's planning on becoming a JAKDF officer just like her when she grows up. Kikoru then confidently informs her mom that she's going to protect her. Hikari is happy to hear this and tells her daughter that, in turn, if Kikoru is ever in trouble, she's going to save the kid. But then, Kikoru's reminiscence moves forward in time, and we witness Hikari's funeral after she died fighting Kaiju number 6. Kikoru, of course, is in shock and tells herself that she's a liar for telling her mom that she was going to save her. Kikoru turns to her dad, and she sees that he's become this cold, expressionless man, the same man who will end up raising her and basically turning her into a kaiju-killing prodigy. In the present, Kikoru lets all these memories sink in, as she tells herself that she's going to carry her mom's legacy and protect everyone in Hikari's stead. Kikoru prepares for another salvo as she chops off one of Kaiju number 9's arms, but the Daikaiju's game has layers. It tells Kikoru something along the lines of, "Too bad, you almost got me," before launching a gaggle of explosive flesh globes directly from the Anyoju's head right underneath the young Kaiju Slayer. Everyone at HQ, from the analyst to Isao himself, are worried that this might end up killing their golden child. But on the ground, Kafka Hibino musters up all his energy to rush toward the ant-like Yojo and hit its legs with a low sweep to ruin the bomb's trajectory. It works, but at the cost of Kafka's shin breaking in an excruciating freak injury. Still, Kikoru doesn't let this opening slip past her, so she pushes forth and unleashes troop-style axe technique, Daruma Dropper, which chops off Kaiju number 9 into several pieces. Kikoru then calls for Kafka to take this opportunity to try and transform again. Well, the JAKDF cadet capitalizes on it and focuses his energy, hoping that this is it. He is definitely going to turn into Kaiju number 8 this time. But just as soon as he tries to transform, he sees a vision where Kafka finds himself in his kaiju form having just impaled Kikoru with his bare hand, with all the other dead bodies of his comrades surrounding him. And when he comes to, Kafka's transformation breaks. He has failed yet again. At this point, he realizes that Kaiju number 9 isn't messing with his powers, it's because he's afraid. Kafka is holding himself back from turning into Kaiju number 8 for fear of losing control again, like what happened when he faced off against Director Isao. With their short window now closing quickly, Kikoru goes on the defensive as number 9 regenerates and starts attacking them. She notices that their enemy has launched a single flesh bomb towards Kafka, and it's set to explode at point-blank range. Kikoru manages to reach her friend in the nick of time to shield Kafka from the blast, but this maneuver ends up destroying her axe, while Kafka is thrown several feet away, with a few pieces of shrapnel from the explosion still hitting him. Kafka tells Kikoru that it's his own fault that he can't unleash number 8, thinking that he'll just end up killing her and all of their other comrades. But Kikoru interprets this as Kafka not trusting his allies that they can stop him should he lose control of number 8. She draws her pistol and starts charging at Kaiju number 9 again, all the while telling Kafka not to underestimate her, Mina, Hoshina, and everyone else. That is to say, he should have faith that they won't let him fully turn into a mindless kaiju. Most important of all, Kikoru reminds Kafka not to underestimate himself, which makes him realize that he's being an idiot for even thinking that he can kill someone as powerful as Kikoru even if he lost control of his kaiju abilities. And at this point, Kafka gains the power of self-confidence as he tries to transform again. A burst of explosive energy comes out of his body as he forces a transformation. And when Kikoru turns towards Kafka, she chastises her comrade for being late, as we witness that he's finally gotten over his self-imposed slump and fully turned into Kaiju number 8. Meanwhile, the rest of the 1st Division are spread too thin, as they've already stretched out their front lines to contain the revived Ant Yoju within their neutralization zones. Platoon leader Shinonome and the rest of the 1st Division received the report that Kafka has finally successfully transformed into Kaiju number 8, and Shinonome wonders if it's alright for Kikoru to get caught in the crossfire between two Daikaiju level combatants. Back at Kafka and Kikoru, Kaiju number 9 pats itself on the back for correctly guessing that Kaiju number 8 and Kafka are one and the same. We also find out how it's been reviving the Yoju, as the monster unleashes a sonic scream that brings the dead giant ants back to life again. To up the stakes, Kikoru and Kafka even see that Kaiju number 9 has undergone another transformation, as the creature grows huge wings on its back. This makes Kikoru worry. After all, her energy is now all spent after basically carrying Kafka on her back just a few minutes ago. However, Kafka puts a hand on her shoulder and thanks Kikoru for her help. He also appreciates how she allowed him to realize the power of trust. They notice a few Ant Yoju coming their way, so Kafka asks his comrade if she can take care of them while he deals with Kaiju number 9. Kikoru begrudgingly agrees and tells Kafka that she's going to kill him herself if he fails to defeat their opponent. Kafka simply replies that he's going to kick its ass. So Kaiju number 8 dashes towards their enemy, as Kikoru blasts the Yoju blocking his path with her pistol. Once he's in front of Kaiju number 9, it tells Kafka that it thanks him for forcing it to evolve and become even stronger since they last met, as number 9 transforms its wings into a couple of flesh cannons aimed right at Kafka. But before it can do anything, Kaiju number 9 is surprised to find that Kafka has already blown a hole through the Ant Yoju it's fused with, as he holds a core in his hand. Kafka is disappointed that he only managed to grab the Yoju's core instead of Kaiju number 9's, but he makes do and crushes the thing in his hand. And well, let's just say that Kafka just made Kaiju number 9's knees tremble in fear when he correctly guesses that its core is hidden somewhere in the ant's body. Number 9 gets desperate and promptly blasts Kafka with a combination of his flesh cannons and his supersonic finger bullets, but Kaiju number 8 just proves that he's that dude when he starts literally deflecting number 9's near-invisible shots by punching them. Kafka then prepares to retaliate by rushing towards the side of a building as he effortlessly runs past Kaiju number 9's barrage of projectiles. All the while, he realizes that there's a silver lining to that time when he lost control of his Kaiju form, because he now feels more accustomed to using his monstrous powers after that ordeal. Kafka then lands on the streets of Shinagawa, and Kaiju number 9 thinks it's got Kaiju number 8 on the ropes. It points its finger at him, charging up another supersonic bullet, but Kafka just leaps hundreds of feet above before his opponent can shoot. Upon reaching his apex, Kafka activates the thrusters on his souls to power dive right on top of Kaiju number 9, and as the creature watches him descend over it, number 9 can only wonder that something about Kaiju number 8 has changed since their last encounter. Kafka tells his enemy that it's not escaping this time, and he delivers number 9 a superpowered right straight from above. Kaiju number 9 blocks Kafka's punch with its forearms, but the impact is so powerful that number 9's eyes start to bulge out and pop out of its socket, while its entire body slowly bursts. Kaiju number 8's attack culminates in an explosion that seemingly turns number 9 and its Ant Yoju into mashed potato, as they explode in a disgustingly magnificent cloud of monster flesh all around Shinagawa. Everybody who witnesses this, from director Isao to Kikoru to the JAKDF analysts, are both in awe and fear of seeing Kaiju number 8's true power. This just drives the point further home that Kafka can either be one of their greatest assets, or an enemy that can spell doom for all of Japan. Back at Kafka's location, Kaiju number 9's body got so badly damaged from the single hit it took that it can't even manage to heal and regenerate anymore. Kaiju number 9 also realizes that its core has been severely damaged by Kafka's attack, so it desperately calls for their beta, the other number 9 that appeared in front of Narumi earlier, to re-emerge so it can fix its body. And here's the thing, guys, we fans get a clue about the creature's true strength, because even though Kafka just destroyed Kaiju number 9 with a single cracking punch, it turns out that the Daikaiju terrorist isn't at full strength at all, since part of its power has been distributed to its beta. Speaking of beta, it tells the other Kaiju number 9 that they can't meet up right now because the clone's dealing with its own problems. That is to say, 1st Division Captain Narumi is handling the situation on his own as he minces Beta with his huge blade. Alpha won't take no for an answer, however, so Beta tells it to hang out a second while it analyzes the situation. Meanwhile, Narumi gets a call from HQ asking him how they're planning on dealing with Kafka if he loses control of Kaiju number 8. The 1st Division Captain tells him that he's going to head to Kafka and Kikoru's location after dealing with Beta. So to do this, he unleashes a whopping 98% of his number's weapon suit's combat power. The JAKDF analysts then see through their computers that Narumi has just unleashed his full combat potential, so they cordon off the area as a no-access zone to avoid any further casualties. Narumi slices off one of Beta's Ant Yoju's legs, and the Daikaiju terrorist clone takes note of how its opponent's blade works. Beta notices that Narumi's weapon instantly cauterizes anything that it cuts, which makes it hard for the creature to regenerate. But before Beta can do something about it, Narumi blasts it with a few shots from his blade's rifle attachment. Beta tries to retaliate with its supersonic finger bullets, but the 1st Division captain just dances around them, all the while countering with rifle shots of his own. Seeing this, Beta notices that Narumi's game has no holes in it. The man can attack at any range, alternating between his rifle and blade. But the Daikaiju clone has come up with its own plan to counter Narumi, as it tells itself that it's learned its opponent's moveset before summoning a horde of Ant Yoju to rush the 1st Division captain. Narumi dodges the Yoju, but he instantly realizes that Beta was just baiting him into a corner when he discovers that the Daikaiju clone has planted itself in the ground to sprout an array of giant flesh bombs around Narumi using the reanimated Ant Yoju. The bombs explode and everyone at HQ starts fearing the worst. Isao and Itami correctly surmise that Kaiju No. 9 is definitely a cut above the rest. Its true power is that it has the ability to adapt and evolve the longer it interacts with humans. According to Isao, Kaiju No. 9 is like a virus, and a menacing one at that. A few seconds later though, the analysts at HQ are delightfully surprised to find that Narumi's unscathed even after getting caught up in Beta's blast. Back at his location, he brushes up his hair and tells HQ that his numbers weapon suit is all warmed up now before revealing a pair of eyes marked with cross-shaped irises, because to Narumi, it's kaiju hunting time. Beta sees Narumi's eyes and is terrified when the creature realizes that they look just like a kaiju's eyes, but its thoughts are interrupted when it sees that Narumi has just blown a giant hole through its chest with his rifle. Back at base, Isao explains the origin of Gen Narumi's suit. It's revealed that he wields Japan's oldest numbers weapon, which was created from Kaiju No. 1's retina. On the battlefield, Beta feels that something is off about Narumi, as the 1st Division captain methodically incapacitates the Kaiju terrorist with perfectly aimed shots using his rifle. One by one, the appendages on Beta's Ant Yoju get decimated, and the Daikaiju can only wonder how it's incapable of dodging any of Narumi's attacks even though it knows they're coming. Beta thinks for a second and hazards a guess. Maybe Narumi has gotten exponentially faster after activating his suit, but it immediately brushes off the thought when the creature realizes that Narumi's predicting its every move. Back at the director's office, Isao continues to explain that Kaiju No. 1 had the power of foresight. The creature was able to visualize the brain signals of any living beings it set its gaze upon, allowing it to detect its opponent's movements before they even move a single muscle. Isao goes on to explain that Kaiju No. 1's attacks were unavoidable, and after turning it into a numbers weapon, Narumi transformed No. 1's power into his most fearsome asset. In the middle of Shinagawa, Narumi uses his numbers weapon suit to detect the source of Beta's brain signals to locate its core. Beta, on the other hand, can only admit that it can't keep up with Narumi's barrage anymore. The battle ends when Narumi drops down and hits Beta with troop-style bayonet technique, second form / salvo, slicing the Daikaiju clone into 3 sections and its core along with it. As soon as this happens, the analysts at HQ declare that Narumi and Kaiju No. 8 have successfully neutralized the Daikaiju level threat, and with its defeat, all the other Yoju have stopped coming back to life. Everyone starts celebrating the victory, but Kikoru reminds them that there are still some stragglers that they have to deal with. Isao hears this, and we can see in his eyes that he's quite impressed with the kind of JAKDF officer that Kikoru has grown up to be. Itami tells him that Kikoru has indeed become more powerful than last time, and Isao replies by telling his right-hand man that Narumi developed his talents at the same pace when Isao took the kid under his wing years ago. Finally, the JAKDF director admits that the future of the JAKDF has exceeded his expectations. The future of Japan is safe in their hands. Back in the city, even Vice Captain Iji can't believe that only 2 of their defenses were breached during the attack, further proving that Kikoru, Narumi, and Kafka truly make up the backbone of the JAKDF's strongest anti-kaiju division, just as Director Isao had hoped. With the cleanup done, Kikoru and Kafka fist bump each other after a hard day's work. Isao even gives them and Narumi one of his rare compliments, which nearly brings the Shinomiya girl to tears. But they're not off the clock just yet, as the director tells them to continue with the rescue efforts and keep securing the perimeter to make sure that no other kaiju are left in Shinagawa. Meanwhile, Narumi can feel that something's not right. He recalls when he heard Kaiju No. 9 tell Kafka that it planned on killing him and take what it called that kaiju power. The 1st Division captain thinks there's more to Kaiju No. 9's motives than just killing Kafka and stealing his Kaiju No. 8 abilities. Little did they know that Narumi's worst fears are about to materialize when, suddenly, an alarm sounds off, as HQ detects another Daikaiju signature. The problem is, they don't know where it's coming from just yet. In the middle of the city, Kafka turns his head to see the dying husk of No. 9 tell him that it might not have been able to kill Kafka, but it's going to be successful in accomplishing its other mission, obtaining that kaiju power. At that same moment, the original Kaiju number 9, who has been in the shadows all along as it carried out its own mission, emerges inside the operations room of JAKDF's command center right behind director Isao Shinomiya. And we get the big reveal that Kaiju number 9 wasn't planning on stealing Kafka's Kaiju abilities. When the creature mentioned that Kaiju power, number 9 was actually referring to director Isao Shinomiya and his numbers weapon, his suit, and the combat gauntlets that were derived from Kaiju number 2's cells. Kafka immediately notices the double bluff and informs 1st Division Captain Narumi that neither of the Daikaiju that they defeated was the main number 9, the true Alpha. While inside JAKDF headquarters, each and every analyst can only stare in horror as the original Kaiju number 9 looms over them. It talks to Isao and makes its intentions known. At the heart of Shinagawa, Kafka hastily transforms into his Kaiju number 8 form to rush back to the command center and help his comrades. Narumi and Kikoru do the same, knowing that there's not a second to waste. Inside JAKDF HQ's operations room, Director Isao orders each and every non-combatant to evacuate. The analysts do as they're told, but Kaiju number 9 spots them heading for the emergency exit. So the monstrous terrorist loads up its finger with a supersonic bullet aimed at the panicked JAKDF personnel. Number 9 releases its devastating attack, and it causes the entire operations room to explode. Thankfully, Director Isao has made it just in time to block the creature's bullet and save the JAKDF analyst from a direct hit using the same suitcase that houses his numbers weapon gauntlets. Director Isao then orders his right-hand man and the rest of the other JAKDF officers in the vicinity to take charge of evacuating the non-combatants and mobilizing their force, as he prepares to throw down with the original Kaiju number 9. One of the JAKDF higher-ups, Nogazaki, protests and tells his director that he's going to join Isao in fighting the creature. But cooler heads prevail as Itami tells his fellow officer that they'd only get in the way of the director if they chose to fight by his side. The best they can do right now is to be good soldiers and follow the director's orders. At that moment, Isao wastes no time to put on his numbers weapon gauntlets as it springs to life with supercharged crackles of energy. Kaiju number 9 tells the director that it didn't expect that the other JAKDF officers could so easily defeat its clones, as it reveals that their power levels match number 9's own prior to evolving into what it is now. That is to say, both the Daikaiju level clones that Narumi and Kafka bodied were as powerful as when Kaiju number 9 attacked the 3rd Division's Tachikawa base in the past. And it's just so badass that Director Isao remains stone-faced and level-headed throughout all of this, as he admits to Kaiju number 9 that his preparations for disasters like this are still lacking in spite of basically forming a super team made up of Narumi, Kikoru, and Kaiju number 8. Isao takes note of just how quickly number 9 has evolved ever since its last appearance, but it doesn't matter, the director is ready to rumble. So he charges at the beast and loads up a supercharged left straight. Kaiju number 9 parries Isao's attack with its own fist and they get into a deadlock. All the while, Itami tells all the other JAKDF personnel to double time it out of the operations room. He then checks the battlefield, recalls that the JAKDF's reports state that Kaiju number 9 has a fortitude level of 8. Cross-referencing that with Isao's current power levels, Itami surmises that the director can defeat the creature. But there's one flaw in his analysis. Itami failed to take into account the fact that Kaiju number 9 has evolved since the last time they fought it, and he's about to get a front row seat view of just how menacing this monstrous terrorist has become, as number 9 charges up its own fist and takes down the director. At this moment, all the JAKDF members in the vicinity are shocked to see Isao get taken down like that. The director's left forearm even gets broken in spite of the fact that it's already covered with an activated numbers weapon. Even Kaiju number 9 is surprised to discover how strong it's become, and Itami finally realizes that the JAKDF director is in deep waters now. It's almost like they're faced with an entirely new beast not seen in the history of Japan. Back on the battlefield, Kaiju number 9 is just about to crush Isao with a devastating blow, but the director doesn't call it quits yet. He counters number 9 with his own power-packed punch with his right hand to give him an opening to get on his feet and reset the clash. Isao reminds himself of what's at stake, from the future of Japan right down to Kikoru herself. So he makes a declaration. He's going to kill Kaiju number 9 right then and there. On the streets of Shinagawa, Narumi continues his trek towards HQ. He notices that all communications have been cut off, so he can only hope that Isao's still alive by the time he gets there. Back at the JAKDF director, all of the analysts have been safely evacuated. That is, except for one, Kurusu, one of Isao's personal analysts in charge of tracking how he uses his numbers weapon and assessing its circuitry. Kurusu tells the director that he should get out of there too, but Isao replies that Kaiju number 9 has the ability to track him, so fleeing is not an option. Director Isao spots the young non-combat staff member in the corner of the ruined operations room and tells him that he should go without him. But Kurusu is one stand-up guy. He tells his boss that there's no way he can abandon his duty, especially at this crucial moment. The director doesn't argue with the analyst and lets the young man stay before telling him that it's time to get to work. Kurusu presses away at his laptop to assess the director's condition, and he sees that Isao's removed all the limiters from his numbers weapon to unlock its full potential. The analyst notes that this is a double-edged sword, however, as fully releasing the combat power of these things shortens its user's lifespan in exchange for getting the full powers of the kaiju the numbers weapon was derived from. At that moment, a tremendous amount of energy emanates from Director Isao as he clashes with Kaiju No. 9 again. He goes for a right straight, but just like before, the creature parries this and they get into a deadlock. Kurusu keeps an eye on the bout and is in awe of just how fearsome Isao's power has become. But awe is immediately replaced with terror when the analyst notices that even that is not enough to put a stop to No. 9 as Isao's armor starts to crack from the impact of the clash and he inevitably gets pushed back. Kaiju No. 9 finds this amusing, telling Isao that this kind of power is exactly what it's looking to take from the director. This makes the creature fail to notice that Isao is already gearing up for another attack. First, the director uses a technique called troop-style hand-to-hand combat 4th form Rising Blast, which allows him to go for a level change and hit No. 9 with an explosive right uppercut to the midsection. And the head of the JAKDF isn't done yet, as he immediately follows up with 1st form Barrage Blast, a powerful elbow strike that literally severs Kaiju No. 9's jaws and beheads the Daikaiju terrorist. At this point, Kurusu gets his hopes up, thinking they've won. But Kaiju No. 9 just eats up all of these attacks and regenerates his severed head. Isao wastes no time and lunges at the beast again, while Kurusu helps the director recover his numbers weapon's output power with a circuit bypass to his right arm. While all this is happening, Isao and No. 9 continue to trade blows, and the director realizes something truly concerning. Each hit he takes and each punch he doles out just makes it more apparent to Isao that he has gotten older and weaker. He tells himself that he's not the warrior that he used to be when he fought alongside his wife as two of the JAKDF's strongest officers. Eventually, Kaiju No. 9 gets the best of the director and hits him with a body shot that chips 5% off of Isao's overall power output. Kurusu scrambles to divert all available power in Isao's suit to compensate for the hit, but he realizes that there's really just no way he can successfully recoup the loss. Kurusu fears for the worst, that Isao might die before backup arrives. However, Isao speaks to him through his earpiece and reassures the analyst that they got this. They can win. At that moment, Isao comes up with a new game plan. He tells Kurusu that diverting his suit's power to defense will just make Kaiju No. 9 chip away at it till it's depleted. So, the director orders Kurusu to direct all of his suit's remaining energy to his gauntlets, because the best defense is a devastating offense. Kurusu does as he's told, and the subsequent power surge in Isao's gauntlets forces his left arm to heal. But the analyst knows that doing this will ultimately wreck Isao's body. He pleads with the director to stop, but Isao is a trooper. He tells his subordinate that he's not worried about the future, since the JAKDF has already found the next generation of officers who are more than capable of carrying the torch in his place. Director Isao knows that this is going to be his final fight, and all he wishes is to have enough strength and courage to put his life on the line, just like how Hikari sacrificed herself when she fought Kaiju No. 6 all those years ago. Kaiju No. 9 prepares to strike the director, and just as he's about to dodge the hit, Isao recalls his past. A flashback reveals Isao and Hikari watching over a sleeping Kikoru. He tells his wife that he never thought their daughter would want to be a JAKDF officer, and Hikari teases him that he can't hide the fact that he actually loves this idea. As for Hikari, well, she's not entirely sure if she wants Kikoru to go down this path. She knows how dangerous it is to become a JAKDF officer, but she concludes that if their daughter is set on becoming one, Hikari's prepared to harden her heart to properly train the girl. She then tells her husband that in exchange for this, it's up to Isao to spoil Kikoru with lots of love and attention. In the present, we find out that Isao didn't choose to evade Kaiju No. 9's punch. Instead, he uses his back to take the hit so that he can set up one final counterattack. He tells himself that he failed to fulfill his promise of spoiling Kikoru ever since Hikari's death, but he can make sure that their daughter will have a future free from creatures like Kaiju No. 9. At this moment, Kurusu notices an unprecedented amount of electromagnetic energy surging through Isao's body before the director releases a direct energy attack that engulfs No. 9's entire body in a ball of crackling electricity. The huge energy ball culminates in a large explosion. Far away from the battlefield, Itami sees it and correctly identifies the attack as exactly the same kind as Kaiju No. 2's main energy burst, a technique with so much devastating power that the monster was able to destroy Sapporo way back then. The realization that Isao is the one who caused this right now hits Itami hard. He knows that the JAKDF director's body won't last any longer after unleashing this amount of energy. Back on the battlefield, the armor on Isao's right arm starts to crack and blow steam, as Kaiju No. 9's body melts away to reveal its core. However, the Daikaiju terrorist tells Isao that it has made preparations for this type of event. Suddenly, Kaiju No. 9 spins into a giant ball and starts transforming again. Kurusu thinks that it's covering itself up to fully go on the defense, and while this is happening, Kaiju No. 9 taunts the JAKDF director. But Kaiju No. 9 suddenly witnesses Isao performing the same devastating attack again, something that the Daikaiju can't believe a human body is remotely capable of pulling off, and this takes the creature by surprise. Isao's second energy attack blows a hole right in the midsection of Kaiju No. 9, and it's even more powerful than the first one, as the energy burst passes through the monster's body and topples an entire building far off in the distance. The shockwave from Isao's attack is so strong that it can be felt all throughout Shinagawa. While several meters away, Kafka and Narumi cross paths and continue rushing over to HQ. At the ruins of the JAKDF operations room, Kurusu recovers from the shockwave to find Isao barely standing in front of Kaiju No. 9, who has since turned into a giant ball of flesh rooted in the ground. Suddenly, No. 9's true form comes out of the protective ball, as it tells Isao that even its powered-up body can't completely defend against the director's previous attack. At this moment, Kurusu thinks they've finally won. That is, until the giant ball crumbles to reveal that Kaiju No. 9 is still standing, even though in a completely battle-damaged state where its core is now exposed. The Daikaiju terrorist tells Isao that it would have definitely lost the fight if the director possessed the body of an actual kaiju, and at this moment, Kurusu can only desperately call for Isao to get as far away from their enemy as possible. But the JAKDF director stands his ground and tries to muster all his remaining energy to perform one more hit right at No. 9's exposed core. Unfortunately, Isao's completely gassed out now, and he can't do anything when Kaiju No. 9 suddenly extends its grotesque appendages to consume the JAKDF director while Kurusu watches on in horror. A few seconds later, Kafka and Narumi finally arrive on the scene to find the body of Isao Shinomiya standing on top of Kaiju No. 9's lifeless husk. In a flashback, we see Isao speaking to his apprentice, Narumi, telling the 1st Division captain that he plans on retiring from the battlefield after forming the so-called strongest anti-kaiju unit in the history of Japan. He then tells his apprentice that after he retires, it's going to be up to Narumi to lead the JAKDF and defend Japan. In the present, Narumi stares at the JAKDF director a few feet away. Kafka calls for Isao, but it only takes him a split second to realize that something's off, because this isn't the JAKDF director anymore. This is Kaiju No. 9 possessing Isao Shinomiya's body. Kafka immediately notifies his captain of the situation, and Narumi is shocked to see that Isao has turned into a zombie-like kaiju hybrid when it turns towards him. Kaiju No. 9 launches a supersonic finger bullet which Narumi and Kafka dodge at the right moment. Kafka notices that even its standard attack has become significantly stronger, as Kaiju No. 9 fully absorbs Isao's body and transforms into its original form. In the meantime, Narumi tries to use his earpiece to call for Director Isao. Kaiju No. 9 hears him, and it tells the 1st Division captain that it killed Isao and fused him with its body, as the Daikaiju terrorist holds the former JAKDF director's earpiece in between its fingers. Of course, hearing this shocks both Narumi and Kafka, as their expressions turn dark and they prepare to attack Kaiju No. 9. Before they can make a move though, Kikoru bursts onto the scene, leaps high up in the air, and starts blasting Kaiju No. 9 with her pistol. But this doesn't do anything to the creature, as Kaiju No. 9 digs through Isao's mind and discovers that Kikoru was his daughter. All the while, No. 9 turns toward Isao's daughter to reveal that part of its face now resembles her dad. Kikoru is frozen in horror as Kaiju No. 9 loads up another finger bullet, but Narumi wastes no time and lunges at the creature to defend his apprentice. Kaiju No. 9 locks eyes with Narumi, and it immediately notices that he's about to use his unavoidable technique, the same one he used on No. 9's clone earlier. Narumi opens by slashing Kaiju No. 9's torso before unleashing a technique called Troop-Style Bayonet Technique First Form Eruption Slash, which peppers the creature with a series of mid-sized blasts at point-blank range. Meanwhile, Narumi recalls Isao requesting him to protect Japan, and the 1st Division captain tells himself that he promises to kill Kaiju No. 9 just as Narumi launches himself for another attack. Before he can reach the enemy, however, Kaiju No. 9 tells him that it's calling it a day, as it grows wings and prepares to fly away. Narumi's confused at what's happening, and the creature tells him that it needs time to recuperate, since absorbing Isao's put a strain on its body. But Narumi's not playing around, so he seemingly teleports right above Kaiju No. 9 and uses his numbers weapon and custom double-bladed bayonet to stab the Daikaiju terrorist. The attack connects and hits No. 9 in the shoulder. However, the creature just eats up Narumi's strike and basically tells the 1st Division captain that it has his game plan checked. According to No. 9, Narumi has a couple of weaknesses. First, his fighting style is only effective when used only on a few enemies. Second, Narumi pretty much becomes useless if his enemy's defense exceeds his offense. And in this case, Kaiju No. 9 has got Narumi on lock, as the creature charges up an energy blast from its mouth aimed directly at the 1st Division captain. Before No. 9 can release its attack, however, Kafka comes to the rescue and tells it to give them their chief back before hitting their enemy with a devastating body blow. However, Kaiju No. 9 tells Kafka that it has adapted to his techniques after his bout with its clone earlier, as the creature catches Kafka's fist with its bare hand. A short distance away, we find that Kikoru is just absolutely broken upon hearing news of her dad's death. Still, she berates herself for not being able to do anything about it, as she can only watch Kafka and Narumi take it upon themselves to avenge the former JAKDF director. In the middle of the battlefield, Kafka and Narumi work in tandem to take down the Kaiju terrorist, but No. 9 is just too strong. He keeps fending them off and pushing back the two JAKDF officers. Kaiju No. 9 sets its sights on Kafka and tries to hit him with an uppercut, and he can barely keep up as Kafka's muscles, even in his current fully transformed state, start to burst when he tries to parry the attack. Kafka slides back for a tactical retreat and Kaiju No. 9 takes advantage of the opening to make its escape, but Narumi jumps in and slices its arm off to stop it in its tracks. The captain of the 1st Division immediately orders Kafka to put pressure on the beast as Narumi lunges at No. 9 and tries to stab it. Their enemy uses one of its wings as a shield to protect itself from Narumi's blade, but the JAKDF captain activates his number's weapon-powered eyes and follows his initial strike with a blast from his rifle at point-blank range. It's effective too, as Narumi manages to blow off Kaiju No. 9's entire right arm. The creature reveals that it can't properly defend itself due to how Isao's body is rejecting their fusion. In the meantime, Kafka appears right in front of the recovering No. 9 to deliver a supercharged body shot that exposes the monster's ribcage. At this point, Kaiju No. 9 takes note of the fact that the main threat in this duel isn't Narumi, it's Kaiju No. 8. Kafka then continues his barrage as he screams about just how unfair it is that Isao's dead. He hits No. 9 with a right hook and the creature barely blocks it with its forearm. It then reveals that Kaiju No. 8's power is enough to obstruct No. 9's regenerative abilities and, even worse, this causes the rejection from Isao's body to accelerate. The Kaiju terrorist then fully accepts that Kaiju No. 8 would be its main foil. However, all this analyzing makes Kaiju No. 9 fail to notice that Narumi's in the battlefield too, as the captain of the 1st Division slashes both its left arm and right leg in the blink of an eye before he and Kafka double-team the monster. Knowing that things can go badly for it if the battle goes on, Kaiju No. 9 comes up with a clever move as it charges up a shockwave to create an opening for its escape before Narumi and Kafka can deliver their killing blow. A short distance away, Kikoru can only call for Narumi and Kafka to watch out. The shockwave hits, but both Kafka and Narumi are able to defend against No. 9's attack. And just to make sure that neither Kafka nor Narumi can give chase, Kaiju No. 9 splits its head into two, with each head targeting Kikoru and Kurusu with a charged-up energy blast from its grotesque mouth. This forces Kaiju No. 8 and the captain of the 1st Division to become completely distracted, as they rescue their comrades from the attack, which gives Kaiju No. 9 just enough time to flap its wings away from the battlefield to make its escape. Up in the sky, hundreds of feet above the ruins of what once was the JAKDF's operations room, Kaiju No. 9 muses about how humans are such odd creatures who can't abandon the person next to them. Kaiju No. 9 then transforms its face back into the form of Isao Shinomiya, as it waves goodbye to Kaiju No. 8, but not before telling him something completely ominous. According to No. 9, the next time they meet, the era of Kaiju will begin. In the aftermath of the battle, Kafka comes out of the rubble left after Kaiju No. 9's powerful energy blast. Narumi emerges from the wreckage too, and we find out that both Kikoru and Kurusu are safe, although currently unconscious. Kafka then slowly transforms back into his human form as he recalls what Kaiju No. 9 just said to him. He thinks it's an absolute travesty for a creature like that to wear the former director's face. In the end though, all Kafka could do is scream and cry out loud at this huge loss they just took. At the same time, Narumi stands in the middle of the rubble with a defeated expression, undoubtedly feeling crushed for not being able to avenge his mentor right there and then. A couple of days pass, and all of the JAKDF pay their respects to the fallen director. News outlets also report the passing of the respected officer, and we find out that Isao had held the position for 3 decades before meeting his end at the hands of Kaiju No. 9. All the while, nearly each and every JAKDF officer stands in tribute to the late Isao Shinomiya, from the 1st Division's Ariake Maritime Base to the 3rd Division's Tachikawa Base. We also get a glimpse of the other units within the JAKDF, such as the 4th Division in Matsumoto and the 2nd Division in Kanazawa, as they salute their fallen director. In fact, there's only one JAKDF officer absent from all of this, Kikoru, because she's currently inside her late dad's office crying alone. At the Ariake Maritime Base's yard, Kafka notices that Kikoru didn't attend her dad's funeral. While inside the office, Narumi steps in and asks his apprentice if she's sure she doesn't want to join the ceremony. Kikoru is unsurprisingly depressed, of course. She tells her captain that the reason her dad's dead is because she was too slow, too weak to do anything in Shinagawa. Kikoru blames herself for letting Kaiju No. 9 escape, but Narumi reassures her that's not true. Suddenly, Kikoru rises from her dad's seat and, amidst tears, tells her captain that she wants to become stronger. Kikoru thinks that her father is still trapped somewhere inside Kaiju number 9, and she declares that she'll start mourning for him when she and the rest of the JAKDF defeat the creature. Kikoru notices that she's lost her composure and immediately apologizes to Narumi, who tells her that he plans on making Kikoru the strongest JAKDF officer after him. To that end, Narumi tells his apprentice that he's going to drill each and every lesson that Isao taught him into Kikoru, so she better show him results, a task that she willingly accepts. Just outside the office, Kafka hears Narumi and Kikoru's exchange and he makes a silent promise that he's going to beat the crap out of Kaiju number 9 the next time they meet. Curiously enough, we discover that a small section of Kafka's right hand has failed to turn back into its human form, implying that his Kaiju number 8 transformations are taking a toll on his body. Not long after that, we get caught up with the aftermath of the attack on Shinagawa, as Kafka's former buddies at Monster Sweeper Company proceed with the kaiju cleanup operations that inevitably happen after these cataclysmic events. Takuda, the head of Kafka's old kaiju cleanup crew, hears one of his men, Hiroto, complain about how their new heat chainsaws are doing a crap job at chopping up the dead ant yoju littering the city. Takuda tells Hiroto that they'll just do it the old-fashioned way, and we see that an entire army of kaiju cleanup personnel are busy with their work in the middle of Shinagawa's streets. Another Monster Sweeper employee, Mitsuki, asks Takuda what's going to happen to Japan now that Director Isao is dead. To the young cleanup employee, it's like losing your childhood hero, and he even informs Takuda that a lot of Japanese people are migrating to other countries for fear that the JAKDF isn't enough to protect them anymore. Hearing this, Takuda gets furious. He tells Hiroto and Mitsuki that he's not going to leave his homeland, otherwise there won't be anyone left to help clean the city streets after the JAKDF defeats these monsters. His two subordinates then praise how cool Takuda can be sometimes, even though he's an alcoholic with a gambling problem who owes Mitsuki money. But to Takuda's credit, he really believes that this isn't the end for the JAKDF, as he muses about the fact that there's no way they, especially his friend and former employee Kafka Hibino, would just let this tragedy slide. Back at the 1st Division's Ariake Maritime Base, Kikoru has begun her rigorous training session under Narumi. At this moment, she's tasked with defeating platoon leader Shinanomi in a one-on-one duel. But it's not going too well for the super rookie of the JAKDF, as Shinanomi repeatedly gets the best of Kikoru throughout several rounds of sparring. Still, Kikoru manages to gain valuable lessons from her defeats, particularly how great Shinanomi is at distance management, which explains how the platoon leader is able to effectively wield a minigun on the field. All the while, Narumi has gotten back to his old otaku self as he lounges on the rafters of the training room while playing with his handheld video game console. He tells Kikoru that this is boring him and wonders if Kikoru can even reach the stage where she can personally train with him. Hearing this makes Kikoru furious, but Narumi just keeps piling on, telling his apprentice that all the 1st Division's platoon leaders have the potential to be promoted as captain in the future. Then he gives Kikoru an ultimatum. In the single month that would take him to finish his video game, Kikoru has to defeat each and every one of 1st Division's platoon leaders, otherwise he'll stop training her. Suddenly, Vice Captain Iji appears out of nowhere to give Narumi another one of his trademark swift kicks to the butt and tell the 1st Division captain to get to work instead of slacking off again. Meanwhile, Kikoru becomes even more focused on improving her skills and proving her worth to her new mentor, so she asks Shinanomi to go another round with her. The platoon leader obliges and they spar again. At the same time, Iji asks Narumi if he has come to a decision as to what he's going to do with Kaiju number 8. His vice captain then informs him that whether Kafka remains a part of the JAKDF is now up to Narumi, since Isao is gone. They then get a call from the base's medical bay informing them that they have some important news about Kafka. Shortly after, Narumi and Iji head to the med bay and discover that Kafka's continual kaiju transformations are slowly, permanently turning his body into that of a monster. According to one of the doctors, it's only a matter of time before Kafka completely stops being human and becomes a full-fledged kaiju if he keeps on using his abilities. Later that day, Kafka sits on a bench on the base's rooftop. He wonders if the JAKDF will still put him in active duty in spite of the toll that his transformations are taking. Regardless, he's made up his mind that he'll do anything to defeat Kaiju number 9. At that moment, Narumi walks in on Kafka and tells him that he's made his decision, that he can't let Kafka continue to be a part of the JAKDF. The captain of the 1st Division explains that his decision is informed by the fact that he can't allow Kafka to be fully consumed by Kaiju number 8. Kafka is just about ready to plead his case to Narumi when the captain cuts him off and tells him that even though he thinks Kafka shouldn't be a part of the organization, Narumi would love nothing more than for him to keep fighting alongside them, rules be damned. The 1st Division captain tells him that he really doesn't care if Kafka completely becomes a kaiju. He'll just kill number 8 when that time comes. Because at this moment, all Narumi cares about is killing Kaiju number 9, and he knows that Kafka feels the same way. In a way, Narumi and Kafka now share a deep bond with each other, as the captain tells him that no one else other than the people on the battlefield can understand how they feel about all this. In the end, Kafka agrees with Narumi and tells the captain that he's going to honor Isao's memory by continuing the path he set for himself. And with that, Narumi finally accepts Kafka into the team, as they prepare to make plans on how they'll ultimately destroy Kaiju No. 9 and its reign of terror. Somewhere else, inside the 3rd Division's Tachikawa base, Vice Captain Hoshina walks into one of their heavily contained research facilities and speaks to someone. We then get the big reveal that the JAKDF's 3rd Division has successfully extracted Kaiju No. 10's head and spinal column after losing its bout against the 3rd Division. And, unlike the other Daikaiju that the JAKDF has extracted in the past, Hoshina and the rest of the 3rd Division are keeping Kaiju No. 10 alive inside a containment chamber in order to gather more information from it about Kaiju No. 9. So there you have it, guys. That's the whole story behind Kaiju No. 8's weapon arc. And honestly, we can't wait to see this get animated, because we're sure it's going to be an absolute banger once Season 2 of the anime comes out. But what about you? What do you think of this arc and the entire series for that matter? We'd love to know your thoughts about it, so let's talk about them in the comments section below. And as always, please give this video a like, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and turn on all your notifications to be the first to see what we have in store for you. We'll see you soon.